Well, they say be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. And you just might get it just a few weeks before the election. Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this episode of Bill Whittle Now is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Bill, what I'm talking about is a decision by a panel of the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, 2-1 majority upholding the Trump administration's decision to remove legal protections from people who had temporary protective status because they fled from natural disasters or civil wars from places like Haiti and Sudan and Nicaragua and El Salvador. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has agreed with the administration that basically temporary protected status means temporary. And this clears the way for an eventual return of those, some call them immigrants, some call them refugees, but these people who are otherwise illegally in this country except for that temporary status as early as March of next year. Bill, the reason why I asked or stated the lead-in the way I did was because when this whole issue first came up in the Trump administration's decision, the president was painted as a bad guy who wanted to take people who have been here contributing to our society for a long time and send them back home. Not just 400,000 some refugees, so to speak, but 200,000 U.S.-born children as well. How do you think this plays in the weeks leading up to a general election?
Well, first of all, I want to know who kidnapped the Ninth Circuit Court and how much money do they want to keep them. Well, in terms of how it plays, it's going to play the way everything else plays. No matter what Donald Trump does, it's going to be the worst thing ever in history. So we already know how that's going to play. I don't think it's going to get a lot of traction, frankly, between now and the election. I think the country has much, much bigger things to worry about. The whole Donald Trump is a xenophobe who wants to throw hardworking Americans out of the country is a trope that they've been using since before the election in 2016. So I don't think it's going to have a big impact on the election. I do think that it is going to be portrayed in, as always, as a personal way of his mean-spiritedness, and not as what it appears to be to me, which is just another attempt to try to get this immigration system of ours under control, which is why I thought and continue to think that the swearing-in ceremony of new citizens at the White House during the Republican National Convention was an utterly brilliant piece of messaging on the part of the Republicans. I think it was an absolutely inspired thing to do. And the reason I think it was so inspired is because it's how we really feel about immigration, that it should be legal and controlled and orderly and bound by rules, and not just this open border sieve where we let in anybody who we think might vote for Democrats.
This is an unusual group compared to the average illegal alien cluster, in particular because they came here ostensibly because they were fleeing something that was a threat to health and safety and perhaps their lives in the countries of origin. They have been here for a long time, most of them. They have born children here, many of them. And one wonders whether Americans see that differently than they see somebody who just, comes across the border, or as some 40% of illegal immigrants come into the country on airplanes and then overstay their visa. Do you think there's a little more sympathy from Americans at a time when Latinos for Trump are rallying all around the country in major rallies and parades of automobiles?
The idea of political asylum for people who are in fear of their lives is an idea that goes back, I think, pretty much through history and probably into prehistory. Certainly, you could go to a church in the Middle Ages in Europe and make a formal request for asylum, and no one could come into the church to get you. It didn't mean you could go running around, but once you were inside those doors, you were safe. The idea of asylum is a fundamental aspect of human psychology and philosophy, and it is in many ways kind of the encapsulation of the entire idea of mercy. And it has a place in our society, and it needs to keep that place. I have no problem whatsoever with the United States being an asylum for individuals who are being targeted by their governments. But when you saw a situation like what we saw not too long ago, where you have a refugee train of people who are claiming to be refugees, march through Mexico from South America, Central America, march through Mexico, have Mexico offer them political asylum, and then have them say, no, we're just going to keep going until we get to America. That's not the kind of asylum I'm talking about. And once again,
and that's not the kind of asylum we're talking about here either, Bill.
No.
So that's my question.
I'm trying to get to the point here.
Okay.
Once again, the entire idea of asylum, as with many other excellent ideas, has been used as a cover and been used as a sort of a shield to continue to allow illegal activities that have nothing to do with asylum until the point comes where now you really can't tell whether somebody is here for a legitimate reason for asylum or whether or not asylum is just a word that they decided to use to get into the United States illegally. And this is what happens when you don't have standards and when you don't have laws that are applied fairly.
So I'm not sure I get your point. I guess let me ask you directly, do you think it's the right thing to do to tell these people who've been here for a long time, had kids here, probably some of those kids are going to school here, sorry, we know you fled the earthquake, you fled the Sudan civil war, but back you go now?
I don't believe we should send people back to a place where they're going to be killed by their government. Certainly on an individual basis. That doesn't mean that America can become basically the refuge of entire populations. But when we talk about asylum, we're mostly talking about an individual assessment of a person who has been targeted or a small group or whatever the case may be. So I don't like the idea of sending people back to be murdered by their own government. But then the question you have to ask yourself is this: what they were granted temporary protection. What did they do during the temporary protection? My attitude towards people who are born in America, whose parents got here illegally, my attitude on this is pretty simple. I think that those people should go through the citizenship process, and they should start at the back of the line. And as long as they are undergoing the citizenship process, then I don't see the need to personally kick them out if their parents came here illegally. But at the same time, I absolutely do not think they have a right to jump in front of people who've been waiting in line for years and years and years, paid tons of money. And this is the part of it that's most offensive to me, is that this illegal immigration spits in the eye of all of the people who've done it the right way. Those are the people we want in this country. We want people who obey the laws. We want people who have respect for the rules. And when people who simply just decide that they're going to walk into America and cut in front of all of those people, and the first act that they commit when they come into the United States is an illegal act, are they not bringing the lawlessness and the economic chaos that they left behind them with them?
So in the case of these particular people who came in as refugees from various life-threatening situations or health-threatening situations at the very least, the decision doesn't have to be made, I think, until March 5th of 2021. The Trump administration agreed to extend it. They're not saying, hey, everybody get out. Would you counsel the president, assuming he continues to be the president by March of next year, would you counsel him to do a case-by-case review of everybody who wishes to remain?
Well, I wouldn't ask him to do it personally, but yes, that's how I would handle it. I would handle it on a case-by-case basis, the way we handle most of these other things. I'm married to an immigrant. I'm married to a legal immigrant. We went to the hearing for the green card, the legal alien card, and there were a number of hoops that we had to climb through, one of which was registering and maintaining our intentions throughout the entire process. And then basically we had to be interviewed like every single other person that has ever been granted a green card.
And she had to prove that she could love a man like you, didn't she?
Well, she had a much higher bar to clear than I did. But when the guy found out who I was, he just stamped it, and they gave me a $100 gift certificate. But my point is, I've had firsthand experience with this process, and I know that going through the channels to bring somebody into the country illegally and have them to become first a legal resident of the United States and then a citizen of the United States is a procedure. It's a fair procedure. It is a procedure that requires you to conform to the laws of the country that you wish to enter. And that's exactly what we've done. And And that's not too much to ask. It is not an unbearable burden in terms of money, time, or anything else. But it is an indication of what your intentions are. It's a very good indication of what your intentions are, because a number of people, put aside the Mexican border because everybody's got hot button issues about that. But you mentioned earlier that a large percentage of the illegal aliens in this country now are people that flew here on tourist visas and simply didn't go home.
About 40%, my understanding is.
Yeah, that's a gigantic number. And those people need to be treated the same way as the people who sneak over the border in the middle of the night. They need to be treated as people that have come to America and broken our laws. And that is not something that we should tolerate from illegal aliens, and it's not something we should tolerate among our citizens either, which is why I say we have bigger problems now as American cities continue to burn at night and forests burn during the daytime. We have bigger issues to solve than this right now. But basically what I'm saying, Scott, it is either a country that is ruled by law or it's not. And if you're going to define entire thousands, hundreds of thousands of people with the word asylum when they may or may not have warranted it, you're eroding the rules. And when you allow people to come over the border, you're eroding the rules, and you're making the people who play by the rules chumps. And when you make doing the right thing being the same as doing the stupid thing, then you've got a society that has got some poor prospects for a long-term future. So
it seems pretty likely that the plaintiffs or the attorneys for the plaintiffs will appeal this decision, perhaps to the full 11-judge Ninth Circuit panel, the en banc hearing, as they call it, or the U.S. Supreme Court. Let me give you two contrasting opinions on what's happened so far, and for your final reaction here. The Federation for American Immigration Reform says that temporary protected status, the T in TPS stands for temporary, and should not be a backdoor to permanent residency. Meanwhile, the Center for American Progress, a bastion of liberal thought, says, quote, ultimately the fate of those people may be decided by the November election. Bill, people who are sincere on both sides of this believe they know how the outcome should be, but I'm wondering if any of the framers of the U.S. Constitution thought that constitutional questions ultimately should be decided by the next round of elections.
They certainly did not anticipate that, but they did not anticipate the entire idea of progressivism, which would be to over the course of 50 years, destroy not only the power of constitutional law, but to destroy the entire idea of law, to eliminate law as an idea, to begin to carve out special groups that would be immune from the law because of the status or the victimhood of their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, that somehow these people would be immune from the law. I'm not talking just about Black people. I'm talking about this entire idea that your commitment to obeying the law is predicated on where you sit in the victimhood status. And if you decide to dress up all in black and smash windows, and it's perceived by a governor of the state you live in that it might hurt Donald Trump's reelection chances, then you simply go free. And if you get arrested, they let you out again.
Well, the Center for American Progress guy is basically saying that this is essentially an issue of prosecutorial discretion. And under a Biden administration, they would be a lot more discreet. In fact, they wouldn't prosecute.
Under a Biden administration, there would be no action taken. And the temporary asylum status that they came into the country under would be permanent. And this is because, again, there's no respect for the law. They consider them to be a voting bloc for the Democrats. If the argument on the part of the left is that Donald Trump is going to enforce American cruelty and Nazism by making the word temporary mean, temporary, while a Biden presidency would allow people who came in under temporary circumstances to remain here permanently, not only against the law, but against every single understanding of the word temporary in the entire language and all the rest of it, then yes, it is going to come down to the November election. It's going to come down to somebody who is either trying to protect constitutional law, federal law, and the idea of law by actually enforcing it, or We're going to elect people who have understood that they can achieve political power by selectively enforcing the law and by not only not enforcing the law, but encouraging people to break the law if they perceive it to be in their interest of their political party. And that's what we're facing right now in this country. And that's why this November is going to be very, very, very important.
I'm sure a counselor to former Vice President Biden has said, the first thing you need to do when you get elected is get some liberals on that Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. That conservative court is really messing up this country. Ladies and gentlemen, we are grateful for you taking the time to watch this. If you're watching us on YouTube, we encourage you to subscribe to this channel, hit that little notification bell, but it doesn't work by email anymore. YouTube has stopped doing the notification email, so it really only works if you're using the app on your phone or in some browser-based notification system. So the only way you can really guarantee that you're going to find out about every episode of Bill Whittle Now, as well as Right Angle and anything else we do at BillWhittle.com, is by becoming a member at BillWhittle.com. We've had quite a flurry of new memberships in the last week or so, and we're grateful to those new people. If you're watching us for the first time as a member, you're the one that makes this happen. You create the content here, not just by funding this enterprise so that Bill and Steve and I can talk, but also you create content at the member blog and in the comments section, stuff that makes that website a compelling place to visit on a daily basis. We're grateful for that. If you haven't yet joined, go to BillWhittle.com and click that big green Become a Member button. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.